Since the beginning of PlayStation, from the PlayStation 1, Sony and PlayStation have been such like the narrative kings. Not even just them, but like their partners and games that you associate with the PlayStation brand. And if you look from like the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, where it was a lot of third party exclusives that kind of branded this console as like a narrative space, and the PS3 and PS4 really doubling down on like first parties from like Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Santa Monica, who really just cemented PlayStation as this narrative beast within gaming. And it's always been like tier levels of like there's games with strong narratives, and then there's games with like Sony level of narratives. PlayStation, they do narrative games the best. When you look at God of War, when you look at Last of Us, when you look at even third party games associated with the branding like Shadows of Colossus, Final Fantasy, etc., like all these games that build the legacy that is Sony, that is PlayStation in gaming. It's like it's crazy to look at the PS5 generation and think, wow, this has been such a complete departure from what I think Sony PlayStation does. And a lot of people will tell you that it's disastrous and it's horrific and PlayStation has no soul anymore. And I think a lot of that is true. In this video, I kind of just want to talk about the initiative that brought PlayStation to where it's at now in this gaming space, for better or for worse, right? All right, do me a favor, like the video, let me know down below your guys' thoughts, subscribe if possible, and then we'll hop into this. Since the beginning of this generation, PlayStation has been associated with this live service initiative that they've been doing. People like Jim Ryan, Herman Hulst have been talking about how, they greenlit like 10 plus live service games from Sony first parties, whether it's, Bluepoint that they had purchased for this, whether it's Naughty Dog trying to make a live service game, Guerrilla, as far as acquiring other studios as well. So the game companies like Firewalk, Firesprite, Bungie, all these developers working towards different culture that PlayStation hadn't developed in the past. Again, the culture in PlayStation has always been narrative single player games that, I don't know, the fan base adored. When you like, these fan bases would go and fight for IPs like God of War, Uncharted, Last of Us, etc., etc. And then we got that showcase, right? Or that PlayStation showcase that was just non-stop live service games, from Fair Games to Concord to Marathon, and definitely got people very concerned. None of these games spoke to the fan base. None of these games represent why people buy PlayStations. And a lot of us, I think, defended this. Like, maybe if they get a live service game that hits, they can, afford to spend money on bigger and better games, especially as like the ballooning price tags of development has skyrocketed beyond belief, pretty much from like $200 million to $400 million to develop a game. It's been pretty insane. But I think Sony PlayStation, falling away from its roots, falling away from its culture, has definitely weakened and softened the brand as far as why we game on PlayStation, what brings us here, the IPs, and this live service that they were greenlighting just showcases that Sony PlayStation generally does not understand what makes a good live service game. And I think the industry in totality really struggles to understand what makes a good live service game. I think one, it really needs a fan base to fight and defend these games. When I think of games like Rainbow Six Siege, that at one point in time were dead, and it wasn't until the streamers kind of took that game and made it what it is today. And without that, when the fan base does not react the way that you need it to, from the trailers alone or the gameplay or the open betas, like, you're struggling, you're going to struggle, and it doesn't seem like it was going to be a good direction for Sony to take, especially when you look at development studios that have been shut down or are losing people. This all came to a headwind, I think, this most recent week when we lost Bluepoint Studios. And Bluepoint, if for you guys who don't know, they were recently purchased by PlayStation in the PS5 generation to develop games for PlayStation. And a lot of us thought Bluepoint, this is a company that has been making like remakes, remasters for other IPs. Think of Demon Souls, Shadow of the Colossus, God of War trilogy. They've worked hand in hand with developers across, the industry to remake, these treasured IPs, these treasured games, and they've kind of proved that they're a cut above the rest with their Shadow of the Colossus remake and their Demon Souls remake has really, really proved that, hey, this is a studio that understands the technology really well. They definitely understand the games really, really well. And they remake these games in ways that are not only truly faithful to their original creations, but also modernize it in a way that makes it accessible for people to get into it. So then when you hear that, they're trying to greenlight a multiplayer game, a live service game, it seems weird, especially from a development team that's 70 people. And I think this is the biggest failure that PlayStation has done in their leadership, is encouraging these teams who have no business making live service games to start making live service games, right? And I know not all the blame falls solely on the leadership at Sony and PlayStation, all of them. I know obviously there's team leads within studios that should have known where their talents are. I know people like Bluepoint. I know were outspoken how they wanted to create an original IP, something new for them, and we can always applaud those type of endeavors. With that being said, though, Sony as a leadership team should have came in and course corrected, right? Maybe they give them that chance and they fail, and at a certain point, you got to take the ownership of the employees that you have, the teams that you have, and say, hey, I know this is what you want to do, but it's not working for you. You got to stick to what you know and what you're doing. And I think they definitely should have, kind of put a little bit more pressure on them to do what it is that they do. Or if it is original IP that they want to make, send someone there to assist them with these type of things, right? I think when you talk about, an overall umbrella of a corporation, of something as huge as PlayStation, I don't think it's crazy to say, hey, reach out to your fellow teams and figure out what we can do to get this to work. When I see like documentaries or I hear interviews of like people from Santa Monica and how they talk to people from Naughty Dog and people from Guerrilla to like figure out how to get these games to work. There was a documentary, Raising Kratos, that released back when God of War 2018 came out, and Cory Barlog would go out there and say how he went to visit Guerrilla and other studios to figure out what they're doing to help their games work. And I'm confused as to why there wasn't a lot more direction given to this team from Sony's side. Like, again, if you're gonna create this vision, you got to be there to handhold it to its destination until they could be trusted, right? And even if that, right, even if you're not gonna be there to show them how to do these things, then we gotta let them do what they've always done and not allow them to fall way off course like they did. And I think that's one of the things that is struggling from this new generation of PlayStation, where they lack culture. I think they lack a brand identity. I think the studios individually have strong cultures, right? Santa Monica obviously has strong culture. Insomniac and Naughty Dog, like these, tentpole studios, they understand within themselves what they're doing, what they need to do, and how to get there. I think the struggle is Sony, not doing what they used to do back then and cultivate these talents, become a housing environment that allowed smaller studios to become huge. And that's where I really, really hope they understand that it's not enough to just say we provide the money. You can't just be the benefactor for these companies, because Sony PlayStation has always been an environment that allows these studios to grow and get stronger and help mentor and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's just been such a strange generation. I'm not gonna say it's been a bad generation, because there's generally a lot of games that I enjoy that come out in this era. With that being said, I feel like they floundered a lot of their goodwill with the community. They've ruined a lot of good studios. You know, Bluepoint, if they weren't gonna make Bluepoint do remakes, they should allow they should never purchase Bluepoint. Point blank period. I don't understand why you would want to buy a studio that is primarily known for making remakes and remasters and try to encourage them to make a live service game. Why wouldn't you just go for a live service studio that does that or is known for doing that? You know, or I don't know, make a new team of people who want to do this. Like, there's other ways they could have gone about that. And again, I think it's also a huge, like, lack of knowledge of thinking. Like, I think a lot of those, you know, corpos high up there think that a game is a game, right? There's nothing different between Call of Duty and God of War, really. In their head, it's all ones and zeros and stuff like that. I feel like they truly did not understand that it's different. You know, different talents lie within different studios, and if you don't know how to make this, you're not going to be able to make, you know, you're not going to be able to make it as simply as that. And as much as I love, you know, my PS5, and as much as I love a lot of that PlayStation does, this generation has definitely been lacking. It's definitely been missing. And I don't want to say it's been lacking. Like, obviously it's been lacking in games. Obviously we haven't had the games that we should have got because they were so focused on making all these live service games. With that being said, however, I do think if they were to course correct, and I think they are doing a lot of things in the near future. Even if we were to look at this year, how we have Wolverine and Sorrows coming out, like that is a lot more momentum than PlayStation has had in a while. Where, you know, one year we only get Astrobot, another year we only get Yosoyote. Now at least we have a couple games coming out this year, and some of these live service games are finally at least releasing. You know, it's not just rumored anymore. We are getting, you know, the Horizon Hunter's Gathering Marathon is finally coming out, and hopefully these games land on their feet and find an audience, and hopefully that works out. But I'm hoping PlayStation learns from this and they understand that they need to cultivate a stronger culture around a more clearer vision that they know how to do. And I'm hoping that the live service games that do cross the finish line actually hit. You know, there's obviously things like Fair Games that, you know, like we're all just waiting for the announcement that it's closing, etc., etc. All in all, man, like, this has just been such a colossal mismanagement on their part, and it sucks that we had to lose studios like Bluepoint for this to finally feel like such a reckoning, you know, because I think for a while it was just kind of a joke, but once we finally lost, like, what we all had high hopes for, we all saw the potential that Bluepoint could have been for PlayStation, and we never got that. We never got the world that we wanted, or that we thought we were gonna get, or we thought we were gonna get, you know, God of War remakes from them, or it definitely sucks in the PlayStation camp. Anyways, those are my final thoughts. I'm gonna end it there. Let me know again where you guys sit on this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.